Peace. You are tuned into Edible Activists with your host and favorite edible activist, Melissa L. Jones. On this show, we honor Black people and their stories in food and agriculture, celebrating legacy, traditions, contributions, and creativity that all stem from the land. So tune in and let's get started. Peace. I am your host and favorite edible activist, Melissa L. Jones. Joining me today is Chef Mustafa Abdul Rahim, widely known as Chef Mu, a seasoned culinary professional and food justice advocate dedicated to the intersection of nutrition, sustainability, and community. With a career rooted in the belief that all food is medicine, he leverages his extensive expertise to bridge the gap between local agriculture and urban tables. Chef Mu represents Brooklyn supported agriculture based in New York City. So I am excited to tap into BSA's work and how Chef Mu has been the guiding hands behind its market experiences. Chef, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited. I'm always excited, Chef. So forgive me for my overexcitement.
I love excitement. Excitement is great. I'd rather excitement than the opposite, I'll tell you that.
I hear that. Good energy. I have been following Brooklyn supported agriculture for quite some time. I like to say, I stalk all of like my favorite food and platforms. And BSA, I came across you all last year, and I am in awe of all the work that you all have been putting out into the Brooklyn community and I'm sure beyond. So we are going to dive down a lane of learning all things around BSA. So celebrating 10 years, I think that's what I heard, which is
Yes.
an amazing achievement. So definitely want to elevate that, but then also just connecting your past experiences, Chef Mu, to BSA and just other communities that you're also cultivating. So for our listeners who may be hearing about Brooklyn supported agriculture for the first time, how would you describe what BSA is and the vision behind a Black-led, worker-owned cooperative reclaiming food systems for our communities?
Sure thing. Brooklyn Supported Agriculture, or BSA for short, is we're a worker-owned food co-op. And what we do is we're trying to change the way that we eat, change the way that we access food, and change the food that's access to us. A lot of neighborhoods and across the country are impoverished, and especially Black and brown people. They have under-resourced, they don't have access to fresh food, and everything, when it does come, it comes at a giant cost, such as supporting corporate and just having gentrification be in the background, getting pushed out your neighborhood just to find something to eat. So something that we're proud of ourselves in is being able to bring food back to our community from people that look like us as growers and distributors and the community. So community-focused market that's open throughout the week, as well as home delivery options. You can get food to your doorstep, to your job site, or you can come pick it up directly with us. We work with local farms in the tri-state area and try to support Black and brown BIPOC farmers wherever we can. Not only do we sell fresh produce, but we also have a hand on provision, such as granola, and locally made other items as well. Everything is made with intention, without exploitation, and without taking advantage of people, taking advantage of our resources, our time, and our money. So everything we're doing is mission forward to feed the people and feed the community from good food, from good places.
Yum. And awesome. Now, BSA uses a sliding scale model where people choose their own price point. I know it's something that we've seen a little bit, with some of these models. And you all, you ask folks to consider not just income, but also wealth, which is a big difference, right? And how does this approach support the kind of equitable community-owned food system that BSA is building?
So what's amazing about our sliding scale is that it's very unique in practice, as you mentioned, that not only do we offer for lower tier income families and individuals, but we also offer for the opposite. And what that opposite does for that higher tier it allows us to offset the cost of some of the lower income tiers that we support. So with the community giving us other access of resources, we can distribute those resources across the board and let everybody get a chance to have fresh food. Because having food is a right to every human, on the planet, and it should not be kept away just because you can't afford the best version of this, or you can't afford fresh food, or they don't have fresh greens in your neighborhood. So that's one of the things we love about the sliding scale. It allows people who have the access and who live more affluent to help provide for others who do not.
Thank you so much. And, because the reality is that you could be bringing in a six-figure income, whether that's pre-tax, post-tax, but if you have debt that is pretty much reaching the top of what you make, there is no wealth, to assume, right? Just assuming if that math is tracking that way. And so that's why I really like how you do have this, you distinguish like income versus wealth because there is like a true difference. So there are, I'm sure a significant amount of folks walking around with big salaries, or even if they're not big salaries, but if there's other things like their debt, and just like rent, housing, utilities, it can still make it hard for someone to be able to afford the nutritious groceries that they would like. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So I mentioned before that this year marks 10 years of BSA. Let's just pause and just acknowledge and just hold space for all the hands that have touched Brooklyn supported agriculture, the communities, the growers, the folks that we don't see that also have a hand in all of this. That's an amazing achievement, Chef Moo.
Thank you. I'm glad to be part of such a strong movement and strong, passionate, minded people who are mission forward focused, who really want to do better for the community and bring access where access doesn't reach. 10 years is an amazing achievement, and I think one of the things that sets us apart from everybody else is that we're still here. Having legacy and having history, and having been a part of something so strong, to have a decade of positive work that's impacting communities and people like us is something that a lot of people have tried, and a lot of people don't get to succeed like we have succeeded. So it's an amazing strength to us that we're still here, and that we're going to keep going. We're going to build off every past year to go forward to the next year. And I'm thankful I've been part of this company for about 4 years now. And I can see the growth of even my own self just coming in as a part time to becoming a full on market manager. So it's very everybody who's a part of this system, this family, this co-op that we're working together, has really strong and passionate minds in their own departments, and I think that's what makes us mesh very well. Is that everybody's giving 110% in their lane, and it allows everybody else to kind of focus on what they got to do, and we work together where need be. There's no animosity between departments, but everybody has a strength. You're not the smartest person in the room, and at least you shouldn't be. And with BSA, that's what we kind of find. Like those who know what they're doing in certain ways, they grow on that side. And those who have other strengths and skills, they run the other side. So we're all working together towards this common goal. We don't get in each other's way. And I think that one of the biggest things is that we respect the work we're doing and the reason we're doing it and how we do it.
That's so beautiful. I mean, a diversity of skill sets, no competition. And you're right. Like, I want to be next to the person who's smarter than me because, A, I want to learn from you. And, I think it's the way that businesses should be set up, right? So I love all of that. It just sounds like a wonderful harmony over at BSA. And, with that, we know that every model has its growing edges, right? And as you continue to expand and make your impact, what are some of the areas that you feel like right now, or even near future, require the most intention and coordination and care?
I would say every part of it, requires intention, and care. There's no part without this working model that doesn't need all those together. But I think the biggest thing is us remaining human, having the human touch, the community touch, the people access, being able to talk to another person about your issue of whether it be a subscription issue or your bag issue or for positive feedback. Just having in a world where everything's going AI driven and being more offloaded to autonomy as opposed to personality, it's still valuable to have the human interaction, to have the human touch. And I think that's something we succeed at strong. Is there's not many of us in this company, and we don't really rely on the tools that exist just to cut away the human interaction side of it. I think having a direct person, having people being able to talk to us on the street, on the block, at the parties, at the events, and whatever we come, we're always people focused. And I think that's the most important part about what we do and keeping that touch base, making sure we never lose sight that we're doing it for the people and that we are people ourselves. So I think that's one of the most unique factors to this company is that we want to make sure that it's farmer forward, food forward, people forward. These are all people moving parts of this system, from the growers, distributors, to the consumer. Everybody is human at the end of the day, and I think that's a very personal aspect that this business does that touches on the humanity of what it is to have access to good food.
I absolutely love that touch on the humanity. And I may be being biased, Chef Moo, because I absolutely love me some Brooklyn. And I'm sure just the extra spark of community that, that's in Brooklyn and like just the corner where you guys are and being able to see so many faces. I can't even only imagine just what the harmony and vibe is like when you guys are face to face and interacting and dealing with so many like just wonderful people and all cultures. My bias remark. Shout out to all in New York though, but I love me some Brooklyn.
Hey, I mean, Brooklyn's the place to be.
Yes. So, and with that human touch and, just really continuing to lean into humanity and having those touch points. I mean, you as the market manager, Chef Moo, like you're in the heart of how people actually experience BSA, which is super important. Like you talked about that feedback, you talked about those interactions. What moments or interactions at the markets you feel like capture the spirit of like trust and care and reciprocity that BSA is rooted in?
I think that one of the most amazing things about me being a market manager is the fact that I'm involved with the people directly. But one of the moments that really sticks out to me is that I've kind of created like a term like I'm a veg tender. I'm not a bartender, but people come in and they're happy your favorite bartender or going to the salon or going to the barbershop. That sense of community where you have a safe space to talk to people that are fellowship with, and that you feel inclined to speak about. Like I think a lot of times when you do grocery shopping, it's very mute. You're just out here getting your groceries, trying not to talk to the next person next to you. You're not trying to have any small talk with the cashier unless you're in Trader Joe's. Shout out to them because they do that. But in general, it's a very one-sided interaction. So having a safe space where you can come in and talk with someone who's knowledgeable about the food, from the health benefits to recipes to just in general where it's grown, who grew it, and how to prepare it, I think adds an extra element to it. So I've watched kids grow up. I've watched relationships bloom, people get married, people coming back with new adventures, seeing me in the street like I'm Waldo, and it's like they pop out like, oh, I saw Chef Moo today, you know, and I think it's one of the most amazing things that I do have access to is how the people are connected to buying more than just groceries, but having the experiences of story time, having a place they can put their kid and it's like, hey, I'll be right back and go to the car, and it feels safe that you can just drop your kid off while you run a quick errand around the block, or can I pick this up later? Just having all those elements that make it unique from being a grocery store, from being a supermarket, having more in touch with people and their food and having people that care about that. So being a market manager, obviously the structural part is managing a market, but the market is community market, and as the community creates the markets. And love getting the feedback from our clients, from our guests. They say, "Hey, can you get this particular product? Can you? I just saw this over here." And it's like, give me the access to information, and I'll try to see if I can bring it to the table. I think it's one of the things I tell people the most is you can follow your dollar here. When you go to a supermarket, you don't know who owns all those brands and all that real estate. For the most part, it's somebody that you probably don't vibe with, somebody you ain't really rocking with their ideals when you find out the truth behind the supermarket. And, our transparency is we are the people, and I can show you the people who planted this carrot. I can show you the people what farm it came from. I can tell you how long it's been in the soil, when it got picked, all those important factors on top of just not having a fly recipe to go home to and try something different out. So being a veg tender and being a place for people to have communion, therapy, fellowship, it's a great experience because I think it's more than just a market. I think it's a safe haven, it's a community space, and it's the new model of what it is to buy, consume, and purchase food.
A veg tender, chef. Veg tender. I love that so much. I do. I do. And also, and another thing that you said, the community creates the market. The community creates the market. And seeing a familiar face and just creating that sense of that comfort and knowing that they can have a conversation with you it's so important to the market experience. So that which helps, with the impact that you all are making. And speaking to all of the, I'm sure, wonderful array of like produce and like locally like the source goods, that folks make. What are some of the things that folks at the market can, often, and I know obviously it varies season by season, but what have been some of like the yummy goods and produce that that folks could come and purchase? Like what would we see at BSA?
Well, I can tell you exactly what we have this week, actually.
Go ahead, Chef Moo.
We have purple carrots, we have Palestinian limes, we have lacinato kale, we have cara oranges, we have grapefruit, we have red fingerling potatoes, and that's just to name some of the things off the top that just came in this week. We often carry Flatbush Granola. It's a black woman-owned granola company. Excellent granola, full of nuts, beautiful jars. Love the design. We also carry Chef Wayne's hot sauce. Chef Wayne is a black chef that is currently it resides in UK and makes this recipe with Caribbean heritage and bringing out all the flavors that involves in. We support as many black and local producers as possible, especially people that aren't on the big shelves. And sometimes they are on the big shelves, which is nothing wrong with that if we're still supporting that same community strain. We support Pipcorn. Pipcorn has a crazy amount of flavors. They have some of the best corn chips since the Frito days. And every time somebody has that particular corn dipper, they're like, yo, this is something crazy right here. And for us to have those kind of items on the shelf is very cool because I curate a lot of the non-produce items just to help, fulfill the other side of what we have going on. And we have a great sourcer who does all our sourcing. Raina does all that. Shout out to Raina. There's a sourcing department almost single-handedly behind, one hand behind her back, kind of getting it done. And so she's like the oracle of bringing all the good produce in. So she knows the growing season. She knows when time things are going to be hot. She knows what specials are coming out. So it's always good to have that kind of person on the field level. And then also somebody like myself who can bring in other items to complement that. And the more products I find and the more unique avenues I can go to get them, it makes us kind of creating a story that you can't replicate. You can go to Coca-Cola anywhere, but one of the things, and I'll bring this back up again, that makes Trader Joe's such a unique shopping experience is that Trader Joe's offers stuff that doesn't exist anywhere else. Now, it might be similar versions. It might even be the same producer and made a white label for them, but you still can only get those items at that store. And you're not going to get everything at that store. You still might have to go other stores, but they know that, and they're not trying to change that. So that's one of the things that I provide is that you're going to shop for what's here. We're in season, we're in flavor. We may not have every single item that you're thinking of, but we have a lot of them. We have items you never thought of either. So to say you got purple carrots, it's like I want to see on the block who got purple carrots in Bed-Stuy right now. So just having that access to really cool and unique food and flavors that are always super seasonal is something that prides us a little bit more. And we don't try to hoard. And one of the biggest problems with supermarkets is that there's too much food in the supermarket. They're not selling all that food. You're just buying food so you can throw out. I think it's a horrible practice. It's very wasteful, and it's starving people left and right from the supermarkets. And the first thing they'll ask you in the checkout is, "Do you want to support starving children?" I was like, "Why don't you support starving children?" And I can say that I put money where my mouth is if the food is at the end of the day we use too good to go. I also have community fridges I fill up, so I make sure that people are eating. I'm not just one just to run my mouth and say we should all do better. I'm actually doing it by action. I try to make sure that there's always somebody to eat. Always food for someone to eat. Different access points and making sure that we don't waste. So I try to make sure we only have enough to sell. If we sell out, we sell out. We'll get more the next time. It's something that we should be really proud of. That when you sell out of something, that's a good sign. You know, that we have only this much of it available. First come, first serve. I apologize if I can't serve everybody, but I can get more next time. If the demand is there, we will make sure it supplies. But also, we want to make sure we don't get to the point of just buying stuff just to waste, just to hold on to. The longer it sits out, the worse it becomes. It degrades the food. And the problem with a lot of grocery stores is their bottom line is a bottom line. They don't care how bad the food looks. They'll sell you the same wilted kale as it is on the fresh side. And that infuriates me. One of the things that I can't stand the most, especially in black and brown communities, because they're taking advantage of us. They're treating us like we don't know any better or don't deserve any better. So I will never do that. It's one of the things I pride myself in is that if it's not good enough to sell, it may be good enough to eat, but it's not going to be in the same pipeline. I will find a different way to distribute. And if it is on the selling table, it's not going to be the same price anymore. I will lower the price. Yesterday's price is not today's price. Very famous quote. So I try to keep that mentality for ups and downs. There are times I have to go up because I don't control everything outside. And there's times I'll go down because I don't control everything outside. But I do control the inside. And being able to have that flexibility, creating sliding scale on demand, creating sliding scale online, and just having access points where there's always something where somebody can afford to eat in the market.
Chef Moose said he's gonna make sure everybody eating, not just saying it, doing it. All of y'all. Thank you so much. Chef Moo, how do you handle like there's always still going to be this question of how do we get people to care about market, going to the markets, produce, and like that education. And it's always a revolving question, right? And so for me, it's just like you gotta want to come to a place in your mind where like you feel like this is healthy for you, right? That's only just like one aspect, but that's often like my go-to. And I can really I'll say that just speaking personally, even though I have a whole story behind my journey. But like how do you handle like the educational piece and just like the conversations day to day when you do stumble across like an amazing customer who may stumble in and like has questions or really hasn't connected to like local food and really just questioning the value behind it. Like, do you ever find yourself in those type of conversations at all?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And when I do find myself in those conversations, which is quite frequent, because a lot of people stumble up into the shop just because they were walking down the street, they saw a post online or something blew their way, so they come in with the curiosity and they ask questions. And I always tell them the education, you know, like the being a street way, put you on game, right? Like, I'm making people realize that there's a game at play and we're the ones being used as pawns in this game. So once you realize you're on a chessboard, on a checkerboard, and you don't have control over how you move to the next square, it's something that people kind of, especially in Brooklyn, kind of wake up to. They're like, oh, I didn't realize Vanguard owned this. I didn't realize, this was owned that. Or every time this market is here, it supports by this thing on the back end. And it's one of the things of letting people know the transparency, lifting the veil, behind what the mythos of grocery shopping really is, and what you're used to, and what is a neighborhood store versus a community store. You know, just because it's in your neighborhood doesn't mean it's for you. You know, if a lot of pay times I'll go into a market just to go into the market, and I'm being followed around. I think that's egregious and like disrespectful to chase me for some celery. And so what if I did steal some celery? Like it's that bad out here that people are hungry. Things aren't going great across the globe. As the global society is hurting right now. People are hungry. People don't have resources like they used to, and every day the people on top screw the people on the bottom. So I think that having those eye-opening conversations with a lot of shoppers to let them know why this exists, why this is important, and why you should reconsider where you're putting your money and where to get your food. Is I tell people all the time, food is the biggest revolution and the easiest revolution you can get into. You can't change technology overnight. You can't change these systems that are grandfathered in, but you can choose where you eat. You can choose what you put in your body. You can choose who puts it to you. All those are your choices. Now, convenience might be, oh, this store is closer. I get that, because there's nothing wrong with that. If you're not able to get to another area, then you're stuck with where you got to be. And I don't hold that against people, but we do offer home delivery. So we'll come to you. So it's not like you have to come to me. So I think that's one of the beauties of having such access points like this is creating different ways for people to approach the food conversation, the food systems, and dismantling them in front of their eyes. Asking them, do you want something that's shipped over from here to there, that's done in this warehouse, that bought so many of them at this time that it's not fresh? If you grew up in the States when the 80s, the food was good. Like fruit was nice. You can smell a mango, seasons change, you get the flavors out. Now I feel like everybody is nose blind because you go into a store and you're like, I don't smell anything. I don't smell the seasons anymore. I don't smell the oranges, the lemon. I don't smell anything. So only the people that actually have the access of good produce, you're like, oh wait, that's what a mango smells like. That's what this tastes like. And I think it's one of the biggest things that we offer is that when people try our food and try our offerings, they realize that maybe they're not used to getting the quality they deserve, and having at that point where you can just come in and buy something. You can buy a single carrot, you can try it. I'll let you try something here. It's like, taste that. You tell me which one you like the most. I think that having that human touch again and trying to remind people that food is a revolution, your finances support food revolution. And at the end of the day, I would expect most people want something good for their body. So I think just having those open conversations with people and letting people know the information that exists and educating everybody, explain like I'm five to everybody. I don't talk down to people. I talk to people. And sometimes it's uncomfortable truth. You're used to convenience, you're used to this one particular way of thinking, and it hurts to change that thought process. But, sometimes you got to be uncomfortable to grow. You got to be uncomfortable to change your circumstances. So I think once people have the uncomfortable conversations and start to realize that everything is kind of made up in a way to go against you, to take advantage of you, to exploit you, and make it seem like you're doing the best options. And then they demonize your choices. That's why I say all food is medicine because there's no such thing as good food or bad food. The way I look at it is when you don't have food, that's bad. So let's start there. Let's make sure everybody's eating before we talk about what's good and what's bad. We're not in a position of wealth like that where everybody's eating on the same plate. So I will never demonize food choices just because of access points. That we all don't come from the same education. We all don't come from the same journey. We can all get there, but we all don't start there. So I like to meet people where they're at, not where I want them to be.
Oh my goodness, thank you. That I mean, gosh, so real, so real. You don't believe in good food versus bad food, especially if you don't have a meal, whatever you have access to, that's what you have to nourish your body in that moment, and that's okay and has to be okay. So, thank you for dropping that real hard. Thank you. Chef, you are a chef, okay? We have talked a little bit about BSA and again, just shout out to the entire crew at Brooklyn Supported Agriculture, just really doing phenomenal work. But you as a chef, an Afro culinarian, and a veg tender, y'all, but also a chopped finalist. Big, big. How do your culinary values and lived experiences align with BSA's mission of self-determination? You've actually already spoken, you've been speaking to this self-determination, especially the cooperative economics behind the model and the community-owned food systems. I mean, I think you just dropped a lot of that knowledge just previously, but really I want to amplify the CHOP finalists and just seeing just how this like everything you just spoke to just all just blends and just like aligns to what, BSA, what they're rooted in. But want to speak more to, your culinary experiences because you do also, other things like outside of BSA that still like aligns with the values of BSA. So I just want to speak to that because you know food. You know food.
Thank you. Yeah, food is a long time passion of mine. It's like lifetime passion, I should say. And quick, like how I got into it was my grandfather was the chef of the family. He was never was a professional chef as far as like got paid to do it, but he was cooking. He was grilling and he was making barbecue sauce. Barbecue sauce was so crazy people would hoard it and like shoot it at functions like it's like some spiritual liquor or something. It almost was. That's how intense that was. And my first moments were climbing out of the crib, going under the kitchen table, and just watching the kitchen from that level. Seeing what's happening. I've always been attracted and been in love with food, and I was able to follow my dreams, to become a chef at a really young age. I graduated from CIA, Culinary Institute of America, when I was 19 years old. I was one of the youngest graduates, one of the blackest graduates to come out of that school, especially at that time period. And it shaped my life because I did graduate 2 weeks after 9/11. So I'm not sure if anybody heard my name entirely, but on paper, a lot of xenophobia can really hit the streets when during that time period. And it never went away. Xenophobia, it just got buried and re-amplified. But that's a different conversation. But it was one of the struggles I had to come up with is how to re-identify myself in this food space. And that's something I think that I've been doing transitionally for the last 2 decades now. I've been a professional chef for almost 20 something years, and finding a space where I can still be a chef and still have respect for myself at the end of the day was something that was unique to me. I've one of the co-owners is also a retired chef, and we call this the retirement home for chefs for some, as a joke for us because it's a way for us to get back inside food service without having to lose yourself to the food service, and still be able to serve yourself at the end of the day. I think being a chef, you lose sight that you are important. The machine is important. These lamb chops got to go out. I got to get this service out. I got to get this wedding. I got to do all this stuff. But I am always the last in that conversation. Even though I put myself first in it, I always end up last. So having a place where it's focused on the people. Being a chef gave me the tools for discipline, for creating lines and systems in this program, for being able to talk about food from a knowledgeable standpoint. And I've made lots of videos showing people how to use some of this food on the Instagram. So just giving people the access that I grew up with and that I learned everything from, and be able to flip it in a different way has been the most unique part of this whole experience. And like I feel like I'm in the middle of the community. I'm entrenched in community, really, in these values and with the people, with the guests. And to say it lightly, you can't spell community without moo, and moo's in the middle of community. So here I am.
Noted for the next t-shirt. In caps, MU in community. Oh my gosh. We can end the episode now, y'all. Mic drop. Mic drop. Phenomenal. Chef, I'm coming to you. I'm new to the market. I'm trying to, I want to elevate my cooking skills and I want to start off like really small, right? What is like one or two dishes that you would recommend for like anybody, like simple, like you can make a cucumber salad or you can make, some black eyed pea, like what would you recommend?
I recommend pickling. It's ancestral and it's easy. And for people who can't cook, I don't believe that. I don't buy that. You just don't know what you're doing. And I think we have to lose the fear. The fear of cooking is that I'm going to mess this up. So what if you do? Like, you've had bad food before that you didn't mess up. You've bought bad food from a takeout place that was subpar and you still ate it because that was dinner tonight. Don't beat yourself up because you messed it up a little bit. That's just a learning curve. That's how you get to it. But pickling and how to use vegetables, right? I think a lot of people, um, they're convenient in how they eat. Regardless if they're creative or not. It's like meat, potatoes, vegetable. I got everything, right? I got my three bases. But just trying to get people like, to expand their vegetables. where I was like, if you just have something as simple as rainbow carrots and knowing that each colored carrot has a different nutrient value. Yes, they're all carrots. Yes, they're all good for you. But purple carrots have anthocyanins. Anything that's dark purple has different antioxidants than the beta carotene. Beta carotene is the orange color, where the carrot gets its name from. So we got beta carotene, you got anthocyanins, you got different spectrums of nutrients in one vegetable, in one plant. So if you just had a bunch of that and had a rainbow selection of carrots on your diet, roast them with a little olive oil, salt, pepper, you already have done a lot of just having multiple colors into your diet without even thinking about it. And I think the easiest way to think about food is, fashion. Everybody knows fashion. They know what colors are in fall, what colors are in winter. Where do you think those colors come from? They're coming from the food that's around, from the plants that are there. So if you want to eat right, just eat the orange stuff when the orange stuff comes out. When you're rocking the orange in the fall, there's a lot of pumpkins, squashes, and gourds out there. Eat that. And in the spring, you're doing green stuff. There's a lot of green stuff growing. Eat that. In summertime, you're very light and airy. Have a nice crisp salad with some berries, some cucumber. Eat within the seasons, and you don't have to think about it so hard. It's just very easy to do if you have a place that's supporting the seasons throughout the year. Now, we don't have strawberries all year round because they're not in season all year round. We get New York strawberries, New Jersey strawberries. They're not in season right now. It's cold outside. You know, don't get strawberries in February. It's probably think about it. Like, where are the strawberries coming from in February? Who are they coming from in February? Why do they cost this price in February? You don't live any near strawberries. It's winter out here. So how are you got strawberries on the East Coast and it's snowing outside? So those are the things that kind of like I get people to rethink about how they're eating. Stop it, get out of your comfort zone to a degree and just eat what's here. You don't have to get tomatoes all year round. You can have a red pepper, similar nutrients. You'll get, if it's red, it's red. Have a radish. Just have different ways of doing it. But I would start with the simple basics, is like roasting, pickling, and just combining vegetables. Not everything is a salad, and not everything is the same three roast vegetables that you want to put in your roast vegetable pot. Like just having people experience different flavors and different ways of approaching food is something that I pride myself on.
Can I tell you the excitement that I just wanted to just like let out when you said pickling? First of all, don't put anything pickled in front of me because I will eat everybody out of a pickled everything. I eat everything pickled, okay? But I love that. And just even thinking, and me and my like end of times thinking over here, Chef New, I'm like, what do I need to stock up on? I was like, pickling. I was like, I just want to like pickle everything and just have it. But it's also just easy, like you said, like you just make your main and then like you have your side. You can put it on a bed of rice or have it with potatoes or some fish or something like that. But then just like the gut health benefits of pickling, like amazing. So I think if I can try, y'all, would love to get a pickling recipe from Chef Moo, that something very simple that we can drop for the episode if he obliges.
I can do that. I can give
Something
you.
very simple. I would love that. And thank you. Thank you so much for highlighting that. I mean, yeah, and what a and thank you for just even breaking down, just talking about like fashion and like the colors of our vegetables and spring. And I just I deep appreciation for that. Chef Moo, we're gonna wrap up, but it's been such a delight to speak with you. It really has.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you. I really
So
appreciate being on a conversation that is just as cool and has you're a great moderator, great energy. So I feel like we've known each other for years already.
I love it. I do. And just like give everybody at BSA a big hug. Like tell them cousin Melissa's coming through very soon.
Yes, yes, come through, come shop, come eat, come fellow
I'm
with us.
looking forward to it. Chef, looking ahead, what excites you about the next chapter for BSA? We're, year 10, shout out again to everyone. And as it continues to grow and its impact, and just for your own journey and movement, like what is igniting your soul about next steps in the journey ahead?
What ignites my steps and is getting me excited for the future is to expand, to reach more people, to have a broader community, to have more people realize there's really good food from really dope people. And, it's just a way to live, and to have that access reach as many people and as many plates, as many mouths as possible, you know, one bite at a time, it's all it takes to change your mind. So I think that the more bites we get, the better off everybody's going to be. So I'm just looking forward to doing more of the work, being more available, and making as many BSAs as possible.
I love to hear that. Chef, let us know where we can find Brooklyn supported agriculture and if for those who aren't in New York or nearby Brooklyn, if there are ways that folks can support, to help support others get access to your wonderful produce at these markets, at the market.
Absolutely. Brooklyn Supported Agriculture is located in Bed-Stuy. No, I think the heart of Brooklyn. Don't quote me on that, but that's where I'm at, and that's where BSA is at. So that's where the heart of Brooklyn is right now. We're located in Bed-Stuy, 224 Marcus Garvey Boulevard, between Van Buren and Green. You can also reach us online at brooklynsupportedagriculture.com. And if you feel inclined, if you have it in your ability, we're always accepting donations so we can give back to the community in different ways. You can find donation links on our website. You can sign up to our newsletter. We have donation links in there. And we really appreciate the support that we get from our community and just joining the food revolution and joining these new food systems so you can get out of the old way of thinking and get into a new way of eating.
You heard it right from Chef Mew. Again, has been a pleasure learning and chopping it up with a chop finalist who is encouraging everyone to pickle. Just try to pickle first, small steps. And again, major shout out to the entire BSA team for 10 years and more, many, many more. So thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your wisdom and knowledge, Chef. I really appreciate it.
Very welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right, y'all. Peace.
Thank you for listening to Edible Activists. You can find today's episode on Spotify, iTunes, and Simplecast, and follow along on all social media platforms at Edible Activists for updates. Want to support this platform? You can do so by purchasing our commerce or connecting with me about media partnerships at www.edibleactivist.com. In the words of Baba Tariq Adunu, there is no culture without agriculture. Peace.